I had put out a call for action from you, and I received your stories. This is Why is Love So Hard? I received two stories that were similar this week from two women, and I'm posting what they sent me here on the screen. One of them wants to remain anonymous, and so I respect her wishes. The other lady posted what she posted in the comments, which were public, so I simply snapped that and put it here. But if you ever want to remain anonymous, feel free to ask me, and definitely you will just have an alias. Today is the first day of the challenge, and here's the book that I'm writing your stories in. And if you want to know more about what I'm talking about, just go to the pinned video in my profile. Let's begin the first story, which is titled Mora and Stavro. Once upon a time, in an Italian suburb, there lived a mother with her three boys. Her husband had left her for another woman about 4 years ago. At first, she did not feel that she could date anybody, especially that she had kids to take care of. But as the years passed and her kids grew older, they were busy with their soccer games, their gatherings with their own friends, their own social lives, and she found herself staying alone at the house more and more often, and she started to feel lonely. A friend of hers suggested she join one of the many dating apps that were all the rage, and so she did. After several failed encounters, she met Stavro, another divorcee with kids of his own, and she thought that maybe Stavro would understand her lifestyle, what she had been through. So one November evening, she matched with Stavro, and they got to chatting every night for a month. It was nearing Christmas time, and both Mara and Stavro had time off from work, and so they decided to meet. Their first date was at a cafe, and they ended up talking for hours. Then Stavro walked Mara to the parking lot to her car, and of course leaned down and kissed her. Mara kissed him back, and they spent 4 hours standing in the parking lot next to her car, just talking and kissing throughout the next 2 weeks. And because they were still on vacation, they spent every day together. Stavro would drive 2 hours every day back and forth just to see Mara. They spent a lovely New Year's Eve together as well. Soon after, however, they had to go back to work, so they decided to meet Wednesday evenings and Saturdays during the day. And that's what they did for 3 months straight. At one point, Stavro had dinner at Mara's house and met her three sons. They even went for a romantic getaway together to Napoli. One day, Stavro just disappeared. He had blocked Mara everywhere and would not answer his phone or his messages. At first, Mara thought that something bad had happened to him, and she called all the hospitals that were nearby asking for his name. She even thought of driving all the way up to his house to see if he's okay. But then it dawned on her. Stavro was ghosting her. Mara was heartbroken. The pain was excruciating. Her heart broke into a million pieces and she was inconsolable for months. She kept going through the whole thing over and over in her head, replaying every encounter, every word exchanged, wondering how she had not seen this coming, wondering how she had not seen the signs, blaming herself for her bad choices in men, blaming herself for driving him away. What Mara did not know was that Stavro was simply not ready for yet another serious relationship in his life. He thought he'd meet a woman on a dating app and have some fun over the holidays, and that would be that. He had never expected to fall in love again, and he did not want the responsibility of, nor the risk of, yet another relationship going sour. So Stavro chose the easy way out. Instead of allowing himself to be led by compassion and love, he allowed himself to be led by fear and anxiety. And instead of talking to Mara about his fears and explaining to her why he's leaving, he opted to ghost her. Every now and then, though, she slipped into his thoughts and he felt guilty for the way he had treated her. And so they lived separately and never saw each other again. The end. Well, that's the first ending, the sad ending, as I promised. I would relate to you. However, there's the second ending, the fairy tale ending that I'm going to get into now. So gear up for that one. The second ending begins now. After about 10 weeks of ghosting Mara, Stavro showed up at her door one day, just like that. He held a huge bouquet of flowers and a beautiful golden bracelet, and he was filled with apologies, and he kept on professing his love for her and asking her forgiveness for his stupidity and cowardice. All Mara could do was stare at him, dumbstruck. She was shocked. There she was, getting used to living without him again. Then he just shows up, all sweetness and regret and love. Can she trust him again? Can she trust that he won't just up and leave another time? Can her heart take another ghosting by this man she had grown to love? So she just stared and stared and stared at him. Then she started crying. She cried out of loss. She cried out of relief, out of pain, out of love, out of having missed him, out of resenting him. Everything was mixed up at the same time. Stavro just held her until her tears dried out. Then they got to talking, and Stavro explained how he had felt scared, and how he'd run away, and how he could not forget her, and how he decided to take a chance on love again. And if she would please forgive him and take him back, he would spend the rest of his life making this up to her. Mara, who could not help but melt in his arms, told him that she'd be willing to give him a second chance, but that they'd have to take things slowly this time. After all, trust is not easy to rebuild once it had been broken. But Stavro was true to his word. He showed up for her whenever she needed him, listened to her, communicated with her openly and honestly and freely about all his feelings, good or bad. And a year later, they were thriving again. 3 Christmases after the Christmas Eve they met, Stavro went down on one knee and proposed to Mara, and she said yes. And so they got married, and they lived happily ever after. The end. That's much better, isn't it? A happy ending is always a better ending. Well, this was the challenge for this first week. I rewrote one of your stories, well, two in one, and I'm waiting for more of your stories. So please watch the video in the pinned videos in my profile and send me more of your stories so you can have more videos like this one. I'm Dada. This is Why Is Love So Hard? And take care.